Mr. Speaker, it's likely this week we will see the passing of the government's 2017 budget, and the government will accuse us in the opposition of not supporting necessary spending on health care and other essential services if we choose not to vote for their budget. But this is simply untrue, Mr. Speaker. When we vote against the largest debt and deficit in Alberta's history, we're simply representing Albertans across the province who want this government to do a better job prioritizing fiscal prudence and living within their means. To the Deputy Premier, do you truly believe that this budget respects the priorities of Albertans who believe that fiscal prudence is important?
Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the budget that was tabled by the Minister of Finance has very, very important and clear priorities. And, Mr. Speaker, it's important to note that these were the priorities this government was elected on, and that is to protect our basic services, to protect our health care. Unlike the party that's asking the question, who would have cut $1 billion out of health care on the budget that they ran on and lost the election on, Mr. Speaker.
First supplemental.
Given that this government has chosen to tip the scales in favor of unions versus quality private companies when it comes to laundry services and vital plasma collection and production in this province, despite the huge potential savings for taxpayers, and given that the increase to the corporate income tax is taking $830 a year out of household budgets despite providing less revenue than it did previously to the same minister, if your priority is really making life more affordable for Albertans, why does it seem that life is becoming more costly for the middle-class Albertan?
Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further than the truth. This government is committed to making life more affordable. That's why we froze tuition fees for the third year in a row, unlike the previous government that kept increasing them. We are reducing school fees, Mr. Speaker. We are capping electricity prices, unlike the roller coaster electricity ride that the previous government took us on. Mr. Speaker, this government is clearly committed to making life more affordable and better for Albertans and their families.
Second supplemental.
Given that your government has no plan to pay down the debt during your time in office, and given that Alberta's GDP shrank by 3.8% in 2016, after shrinking by 3.7% in 2015, and given that a shrinking economy, ballooning debt servicing costs are going to have a lasting effect on the ability of the future governments to appropriately fund important programs. To the same minister, have you given any thought to how your budgeting is going to hurt future generations, and is future generational debt actually a priority for your
government?
Not at all.
Thanks very
Government
much.
House Leader.
What is important to this government is making sure that in the future our kids have good schools, that we have health care that's there when we need it, that people can afford child care, that people can make sure that their aging parents are well cared for, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that the Conference Board of Canada, just on this question, projects that Alberta will lead the country in growth in 2017, Mr. Speaker. Quite the opposite of what the member is trying to suggest.